Alright, so I just finished watching this movie on YouTube called The Lift. It came out in 1983, so bear with it. So we got these two couples that just came from a restaurant, whatever like that, and they're about to go on this elevator so they get up to the floor. So the thing is, this spot has about 15 floors or something. One couple just can't wait. He's gonna give her the business in the elevator, the other would just like stay in the elevator. Then you realize that all the air is being sucked out of it. Some people were able to get to the elevator, whatever like that, open the door before they suffocated themselves to death. We get to this guy by the name of Felix. Felix has got his wife by the name of Josephine. They've been married for like 10 years and they got 2 kids. Now, Felix works on elevators for a living. In fact, he's probably the best at his job because that's why they called him. Found out the 2 couples didn't die, you know what I'm saying? They survived, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully because they got time to get them out the elevator. So he's basically just there to do his due diligence and everything, but he finds out that he doesn't find anything wrong with the elevators. We said maybe it could have been a fluke accident or something. It could be rats chewing up the wiring or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, this hotel looks kind of nice. Like, it shouldn't have fucking rats in it. So basically while he's doing this lady by the name of Kathy comes in out the blue, you know what I'm saying? She's supposed to be some type of journalist, but she's not supposed to be in the hotel like that asking questions and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? So this other dude ends up kicking Kathy out, you know what I'm saying? He goes back to working on it. But the thing is, when we find out Felix leaves, all of a sudden, Kathy's inside of his truck. I'm like, dude, you sneak it into his truck for what? How did she even get in there? So she needs a ride to some spot called Linden Tree, but it turns out he ends up giving her a ride to her actual job. So then we get this scene where this guy is working with this security officer at night or whatever like that. They're supposed to be the only 2 people in the building. But then they see the elevator jumping floors or whatever like that. So they think to themselves like, somebody else must be in this building. So they keep running up and down the steps. And they get to like the 10th floor where they think the elevator stopped at or whatever like that. So the one guy is checking the elevator as it opens back up. And the officer goes around and checks something else. But as he looks down, you see the elevator cart is not on the 10th floor. It's like on the 15th floor or whatever like that. But as he's looking down, he sees somebody at the bottom of the elevator done deal dead as shit. I'm like, who is this? Some guy named Mr. Minks, and he's supposed to be blind. So this is the situation with this guy. We go back to a situation earlier in the day when he's supposed to be purchasing some type of property. And he's going to take one of the elevators to get to his room. Now, here's the problem. He tried to get on the elevator, but the cart wasn't there. So he ends up slipping and falling. He's hanging onto the door for dear life, but eventually he ends up falling. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, there's nobody else on this floor that could have helped him or something. Like, what's going on? So the thing is, later on within that day when they heard about Mr. Minks or couldn't find him, whatever like that, it turns out they just thought he disappeared or something like that. They didn't even know he was at the bottom of the fucking elevator shaft. So while this guy's looking down to see him, all of a sudden the elevator is closed on his head. The police officer's trying to get his head out. He can't get his head out of the situation. And then the cart comes down and decapitates this nigga. You're like, oh shit. The officer just stared at the lift, just traumatized. Then we get to this scene later with this random dude, I guess he works at the hotel, whatever like that. He trying to get his rocks off with his secretary. Now the secretary has a daughter that's just chilling in the lobby or whatever. And she's got this doll in her hand and all of a sudden she keeps seeing the doors open up by themselves. She was just playing around back and forth with the doors by herself, and then the middle door opens and we're like, oh shit, is she about to walk into it? Then as they're trying to get it popping, all of a sudden they hear the daughter scream. She's like, what the fuck? Turns out the daughter had messed up her own doll. The mom got mad and smacked her. I was like, yo. But then the guy notices when he looks at the elevator, a piece of the doll was on the elevator. But the hand of the doll was in the elevator door. He's like, oh shit. That elevator would definitely try to snatch her up. That shit was nuts. So you're probably thinking to yourself at this point, like, yo, fuck the elevator, take the goddamn stairs. But a lot of these people are lazy. They don't want to get no fucking exercise. So now we get back to Felix. He's going bowling with his wife, and, you know, he's with his next door neighbor couple or whatever like that. Then Felix's wife is best friend that gets into this conversation about infidelity and whatnot. I'm just like, really? Both couples have been married for like decades or whatever like that. And you're just like, where'd this conversation come from? Now, she don't believe Felix would cheat on her, but it got her thinking, you know what I'm saying? Now, Felix over time has been talking to this lady, Kathy, you know, the journalist. He's trying to figure out all these computer systems and whatnot. And he pretty much starts getting to it because he's thinking it's his fault. He thinks as though, did he overlook the circuit breaker or something like that? Because all these random incidents keep happening at this hotel. So Kathy had called him up, whatever like that. They start talking. He talks about computer chips and stuff. And they were talking at this cafe. All of a sudden, his wife's best friend sees them talking from the side of the room or whatever like that. And she automatically thinks, oh, infidelity, he's cheating. But he's really just talking to her, trying to figure out what went wrong with these daggone elevators. Now, they gotta go over to the spot where the electronics were made from. The thing is, she's not supposed to be able to go with him because she's a journalist. So she pretends to be dressed up like a maintenance person so they can both get in there. Now, apparently, Felix already had this appointment set up. And the doctor basically tells him everything's functioning properly with our equipment and stuff like that. Because they don't want to be liable for lawsuits and things of that nature. Then later on, Felix goes to work. Now, his boss is trying to set him up for a promotion because he's one of the better people that work there, whatever like that, right? But then Felix ends up talking to one of his co-workers and they talk about some guy named Booker. Now, Booker was the main guy that used to work on these elevators before Felix did. And whatever happened, something drove him crazy and got him in a mental institution. And he's been there ever since. So Felix goes over to this mental institution so he can talk to Booker because he really wants to figure out how the heck to get this stuff working if he doesn't feel like he can find the problem. And while he's there, Booker's hands are all taped up for some reason. The doctor says you can ask him anything you want, but bottom line is he's been so sedated and he probably won't even be able to respond to you or anything. Which when he's talking to him, he doesn't respond to him. Then Booker starts seeing stuff on the wall. People start spazzing out for no reason. I'm thinking to myself, are they really spazzed out or is that just what he's seeing? So it gets to a point where Felix goes back to the house, you know what I'm saying, they eating dinner or whatever like that, but he came home late. And his wife is now suspecting infidelity because the best friend told him what they was doing. They was sitting at the daggone cafe. I'm like, dude, just tell her you're working with a journalist. You know what I'm saying? Working on these, trying to get these computer system stuff right. But he doesn't even tell the whole story. And meanwhile, she's over there crying. And then crazy timing, Kathy ends up calling him. And end up going to see this doctor. Now, here's the thing about this doctor. He said sometimes when it comes to computer systems, the smaller the chip, the weaker the system is. He said sometimes it gets to a point where if the system messes around, it starts over and overloads or whatever like that, it can reproduce. I'm like, chips reproducing? So when he said that, I had to go back to the beginning, right? Now, when the first two couples that got on the elevator coming from the restaurant or whatever like that, the thing was lightning struck, the power short-circuited and then cut back on. So I'm thinking to myself, did the reproduction start after the lightning shortage? So let me tell you why the reproduction thing is supposed to be important. Because the doctor thinks that chips can take on a life of its own and they become a real thinking machine. So you're telling me if the chips shorten out and then reproduce, you got some type of artificial intelligence going on around here on a fucking lift or the elevator shaft? Sure, let's roll with that. Now, Kathy thinks there's something to it, but obviously Felix thinks it's some bullshit. As any person should. So Felix tries to go to work the next day, and his friend said, hey, I thought you called in sick. And then Felix is like, what are you talking about? So he goes over to the boss, and the boss says, yeah, I'm the one that made sure you called in sick, because you need to take like a month off or something. Because of all the incidents that keep happening at the hotel, and he's the one been going over there to try to make sure everything was fixed and everything like that. But it's not just the fact he wanted to take a month off. He basically wanted to take about the case of this lift. He wanted to do some other stuff. You know, work on other elevators. But Felix is starting to think there's really something to this shit, so he can't let it go. So when he gets back home, he finds out his house is empty. Then he gets a phone call from his wife, and he's thinking to himself, like, what the heck happened? So apparently at one point in time, she was like trying to collect bottle caps. She said she collected 100 bottle caps from something. They could get a trip to Hawaii. Yeah, shit like that used to happen back in the day. When he came home and looked at the tin can, he sees that all the bottle caps are out of there. But she didn't even save up that many. She only had like 10. So I'm thinking to myself, even if she didn't have it, where the fuck was she going to go? So she went off, hung up the phone, and then tried to call back. But then he had gone off. But the thing was, he didn't go off on her. It ended up going off on Kathy. Then he disconnected the phone call after that because he was just pissed off. So, you know, Kathy thinking to herself, where is he going to go now? Because he's like so frustrated. Then all of a sudden we got these two guys that are talking in a car or whatever like that, right? And he was like, yeah, these experiments have gone on long enough. He's like, the fuck are you talking about? He said these experiments have gone out of control, you know, with elevator shafts and stuff like that. I'm like, oh shit. But they don't want to say nothing because they don't want to be held responsible. So I'm like, wait a minute. Then we had this one scene where the guy was like buffering the floors and whatnot. And the elevator door opens on him, and what he saw scared the shit out of him. So I'm like, what the heck did he see? Next thing you know, his boss comes back. All he sees is a little scrubber just sitting there. You're like, where the heck did the worker go? Somebody else then gets on the elevator, and then he gets to like the 5th floor, right? And he felt something dripping on his jacket. Next thing you know, the worker plops down from the top part of the elevator. He's just done deal daddy shit, wrapped up in cables and stuff. And I was like, wait a minute. Did the elevator actually pull him onto the shaft? Like, that's crazy. I'm thinking to myself, ain't no way it did that shit, right? It gets to a point where Felix is trying to figure this all out. Bottom line is, he's going to sneak into the hotel at night. So he sneaks in there. He's trying to check on these elevators, whatever like that. The doors be opening and closing, and sometimes you're thinking like, what the heck is going on? He tried to get a chair, and he was going to work from the elevator from the inside out. But before he could get back on, the elevator closed automatically, and it broke the damn chair to pieces. So he's basically going to try to find another way to get into the elevator shaft and then try to work for it from there. So he gets to the point of getting there, and he's standing on top of the cart or whatever like that to try to check, like, you know, some type of computer malfunctions or maintenance, something like that. And he finds some type of like sticky ooze substance at the top of it. Then he finally gets to the inside part where there's a circuit breaker. And inside the circuit breaker's got all this ooze in it. You're like, what the fuck? So he's trying to smash the inside of this stuff, and then all of a sudden the elevator cart goes crazy. It goes up and down and shit. Then it gets to a part where he's stuck at the door or whatever like that. You think he's about to fall to his death too, right? He's trying to crawl to get himself out, and then all of a sudden you hear wire snap, and I'm like, oh shit, the elevator shaft is gonna fuck around and crush his ass. Right before it happens, somebody pulls him out the way to the rescue. It's like, it's Kathy. I'm like, how the heck did Kathy know he was going to be in there? And on the exact floor, too. Even if she did search the whole building, she was able to get him out right there at the last minute before the cart fell. So she basically said this, like, this old dude comes out of nowhere, and then he pulls out a gun. We're like, oh shit, he's going to shoot him? Nah, he ends up shooting the controls where the ooze and stuff is at. He just bangs off a bunch of shots. So it feels like at that point he's about to tell us something or whatever like that, or you think he's actually going to shoot the people. But then wires come out of nowhere and yoke his ass up. I'm like, oh shit, that's what happened to the worker. And it pretty much chokes him to death. He's just hanging there. We're like, yo, what the heck just happened? Last thing we see is Kathy and Felix going down the steps or whatever, and then the credits roll. I'm like, what just happened here? I am completely baffled. What is artificial intelligence elevator? And even if it was doing crazy stuff, you think to yourself it would happen when you're on the elevator. But then all of a sudden, you got the wire cables that are snatching people onto it. I'm like, what? Man, this is nuts. If you can find it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure it's still on there. Check out The Lift, 1983 version. Yeah.